I was chased by dogs. I remember being chased by a couple dogs where I go up to the door and it was like cracked open. I see like a pit bull and I literally have to run because it almost got my leg. I remember one time I walked into a house. I thought it was the front, but it was actually the backyard, and there was a lady. She was actually laying out.
Screaming.
She didn't have a lot of clothes on and I didn't know, and I was like, she chased me out.
Tonight, talking mortgages in the dead of night. Lion of Loans, podcast roars, financial wisdom from the core. Lion of Loans, knocking on your door. James McKibben gonna teach you more. Breaking down the debts and scores.
Okay, welcome to the first ever Lion of Loans podcast. I'm Keegan, the marketing director here at Lion of Loans, and I'm here with Mr. James McKibben, who is the actual host of this podcast. So he's going to be hosting from here on out. I'm going to be here interviewing him today. And this podcast isn't just about mortgages and real estate. It's about the stories, the strategies, and the people behind the deals. So it's no better person to start with than the man who built the reputation as the Lion of Loans. So James isn't just about crunching numbers and closing deals. He's about yacht networking, making luxury real estate accessible, and sharing the journey with some of the most fascinating people in the game. So who is James? Well, he's got 19 years in the business, $2.25 billion in funded loans, and a knack for solving the kind of mortgage puzzles that leave most brokers scratching their heads. But he's also the guy you'll find soaking up the Newport Beach sunsets and figuring out Instagram as he goes. So today we'll talk about how James got started, what's kept him motivated, and why this podcast is his next big leap. So James, let's open up with a nice icebreaker here. You know, I gave a little introduction about you.
Yeah.
If you weren't a mortgage broker, what would you be doing with your life?
Good question. This is going to sound boring, but I'd probably be a realtor. You know, I find myself loving houses and architecture and, you know, whether it's a big house, a condo, a beach house, a house in the mountains, I just love properties. A lot of that's probably because I'm a mortgage person and I just see appraisals and talk to people buying houses, selling houses. So I'd say a realtor. Sounds kind of boring, same industry. Otherwise, maybe an agent, a sports agent, because I love sports as well.
Some Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, maybe Jerry Maguire. You know, I just love sales and people that really grind to get their clients, work hard. So those always kind of fascinated me.
I can see you as a Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, sports agent. You can dress nice.
Like football?
Yeah.
You're a football guy, basketball?
You know, I don't know much about hockey, I won't lie, but I know a lot about baseball, basketball, football, and golf. So I kind of know everything, almost like an announcer. But those would be kind of fun to do. I probably couldn't be a doctor, long schooling, or an attorney. I could probably be an attorney because I can talk a lot and I can fight with the opposition. But I'd say either sports agent or
I've seen how you work. I think you'd be a killer sports agent.
Yeah, I would just outwork everybody.
So what's the most like Newport Beach thing about you? So do you own a surfboard? Do you have a yacht, or is it a really nice pair of flip-flops?
So I grew up in Dana Point and then Laguna Beach. And those are like quintessential like beach towns, right? A lot of my friends, best friends, were pro or semi-pro snowboarders, surfers, skateboarders. So I did it all growing up. You know, I was always pretty good at them, not as good as they were. And so I don't actually own a surfboard or wetsuit anymore. I could always find one with one of my, you know, friends who are just amazing at what they do in those, you know, extreme sports. I do have a boat I bought in the last year. You know, life on the water is way different. Like if you haven't actually been like in Newport on the water, Dana Point, or some of these beach cities, way different. There's like a whole community.
Sure.
And it's just so nice, like to actually see the land from the water. It's really pretty tranquil. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, you know, I'd say boating is something I do. I also really try to be a sense of my community. Like my gym where I work out is here in Newport. I have a wine locker at one of the restaurants. So I try to always support local eateries or establishments, etc. Really, I work a lot. That's my thing. Like I literally work like this is.
I've seen how you work.
I literally work like I don't want to be like sound like I work that much, but I probably work at least 14 hours a day. I always say even when I'm not working, I'm working because you're always thinking about what you can do.
I've seen the drive.
Yeah. You know, sometimes
and I mean, we're here on a Sunday, right? It's
today's
like
Sunday.
Most people are taking the day off. You were coming from a meeting.
I was coming from a realtor meeting. before, it's Sunday. People are watching pro football. The Rams are playing.
Yeah.
And we're in the office with meetings after this and work after this.
We're shooting content for the next couple hours here.
Sometimes what I do when I'm even not working, if I get an idea, I have a little notepad. This is kind of cheesy and stupid, but I'll write down notes of ideas, because if you don't write them down, you forget them sometimes.
It's so true.
You just have to, and then you have them for the next day, whether it's Instagram or a speech I give. I do a lot of public speaking. So you always want to have those little fresh nuggets of wisdom.
Awesome. So let's go back in time. Today we're going to talk about our vision for the podcast. We're here in Corona Del Mar. We have a lot of great ideas of amazing, really talented realtors we want to bring on. And, this whole vision for the podcast, vision for, our social media in general and what we're going to be doing. But let's go back in time first. And I wanted to ask you, what was your first ever job, and how did it have anything to do with where you ended up? Let's give them some context of how we got there.
For me, I worked a lot of small jobs when I was growing up. I worked at a Coke booth at the Sawdust Festival in Laguna Beach. Really the first job I had when I had to show up and grind. My best friend in high school, his dad owned Laguna Nursery, and he had a landscape division. And I worked one summer for him. And it was funny because there was a lot of 20, 30-year veterans in landscape. And I would drive them, because a lot of them didn't have licenses. They were just great at what they did in the landscape field. And I would outwork all of them. At first, they hated me because I was friends with the owner of the company, and I just kind of showed up and had a summer job.
Yeah.
But I would outwork them so hard that by the end, they really respected me. Okay. I would carry rocks on my shoulders. I would work with harnesses on slopes, and I just show up and outwork them, and they loved it. So not anything to do with mortgages per se, but with hard work.
Sure.
It's like they say, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Sure.
I always say, as almost an example, somebody could say, go be a commercial realtor, go be, do this, do that. And I always say my first year, I'd be successful in it, because I just wouldn't stop working until I was successful. I wouldn't stop working until I had deals, anything. I know, and that's no knock on other industries. I know it'd be tough for me, but I always say, just put me in this position that I don't have any experience in, and I'll go to the top fast, because I'll outwork you and I'll want it more.
What is that feeling? Is it you want to be the best? That's kind of what I see since I worked here. It's that's kind of why I wanted to come work here. It's I saw that motivation, whereas you actually want to be the best. It's pretty rare. It's the mortgage industry is very competitive. It's huge. And it's you're getting some accolades from Movement.
Yeah.
As I think you were first in November at Movement, which is out of 6,000 mortgage brokers.
Close to it, yeah.
So I just see that drive is where do you think that comes from?
I think after college, so I graduated college when I was 22. I went through it in 4 years. The over under was 7 years, but I made it in 4. Yeah. So I just kind of shot through it. But I had a point after college where I kind of went down. I didn't do much. And a lot of my friends got those entry level jobs, and they were doing really well, and they'd see me, and it was kind of I didn't have much to talk about. I kind of peaked after my 22 years. So I kind of peaked after college, and I had a couple small jobs, but I didn't really find a passion. Yeah. People would see me, and it was almost a little point where it was you're probably not going to do much with your life. And so honestly, they'd see me at a party or a restaurant, and I would just be I'm still figuring it out. And I was 24.
Sure.
I had 2 years. I didn't do a lot. I had a couple jobs, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I got a mortgage, and I can honestly say the first 2 years when I got a mortgage, I was really bad at it.
Yeah.
So I worked in Irvine, city of Irvine, at Countrywide Home Loans. It was the #1 lender. I think they had 17,000 loan officers at one point. And there's probably 35 people in office, 35 loan officers, I should say.
Sure.
I was probably number 32, 33, 34, 35 every month. At the bottom.
Yeah.
I was terrible.
Yeah.
And I
remember 25.
I was 25 years old. And for me, after college, I just thought what I wanted to do is wear a suit. I thought that's what it was like to get a job after college. That's just kind of how I was raised and grew up, was thinking I would wear a suit. And I got to wear a suit, but I didn't have any business, and I didn't have any income, but I still got to look cool, right? Yeah. So I wore a suit to work, but I wasn't confident in it. A lot of my friends, they worked other jobs that were off at 4 or 5. And I tried, but didn't try as hard as I did now.
Sure.
But I just wasn't good at it. I honestly thought it was just my next job until I found something. And then probably after my second year, I got a little bit of success. I remember 1 month I made $9,000. Wow. And I was 25, and I was okay, if you do that over a year, it's 100, 110,000, roughly. I was okay, that's not terrible. But then I went back down. but it was that little taste of success.
Yeah.
And then you start getting more competitive. You get
Yeah.
to like number 25, number
Sure.
20, number 15,
Sure.
number 5. And you're
Yeah.
like, it kind of changes your whole perspective and self-esteem and like what
Yeah.
you can do, and you can buy things yourself and help more people.
Yeah.
It's all about helping other people.
Sure.
I always say with realtors, I'm always there for them first. And I always say I put my clients' needs, ahead of my own needs.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm injured or sick and they need something, they're first. My health is second. It may sound kind of cheesy.
Mhm.
That's just how I live. And I feel like people recognize that. So by year 3,
Yeah.
I had a little bit of success.
Sure.
It just, again, you start getting competitive within your own
Mhm.
office. So in 2009, I got most improved loan officer in the region. I think there was like 275 people in the region. It was Southern California.
Sure.
I worked at Bank of America, but Bank of America bought Countrywide.
Okay.
So it's just a transition. So I worked at Countrywide.
Yeah.
Bank of America bought,
Uh-huh.
so I,
So you moved over to Bank of
yeah,
America.
so I moved over to Bank of America, and 2009 I got most improved, and I was number 21 in Region 21,
Yeah.
which was like a huge deal because
Yeah.
it was like roughly 275 people,
Mhm.
ton of people in the country,
And this time you're 26, 27.
26, 27.
Yeah.
And I remember there was an event at the Surf and Sand in Laguna Beach, and it was the top 21 in Region 21.
Mhm.
And I was just, all these guys would show up when I was young, 26,
Mhm.
27-ish, 28 maybe, and they'd all show up. They were,
In their 40s.
I want to say 40s and
Yeah,
50s.
40s
They
and
dressed
50s,
really
yeah.
nice. They had nicer cars than me.
Yeah.
I was intimidated by them.
Yeah.
I remember just like meeting them and hey, and I was like my first time going to like an awards event.
Yeah.
And there was a guy named Kevin Reski. He still works at
Uh.
Bank of America. He's like a, national sales director. And I remember like he was presenting as like the main, regional.
Mhm.
There was different branch managers. I remember just how cool it made me feel. Like it made me
Sure.
feel like I want to do more of this,
Yeah.
So I was number 21 that year.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to a gentleman named Kevin Buddy.
Mhm.
Still a huge producer. He was
Mhm.
number 1. And I think I funded like 55 million that year. So
Wow.
it's not a bad year
Mhm.
being young.
Mhm.
And he funded like 140 million.
Wow.
And I remember saying, like, hey, can I talk to you, Mr. Buddy? I was intimidated. I was young. Sure. And I was like, how do you find time to do all this business? Like, because
Yeah.
how do you do it? And he's like, you'll get there. He gave me a few,
Yeah.
a little bit of his time.
Yeah.
Said, you got to do this, you got to do that. That was 2009.
Mhm.
By 2012, I was number 1,
Wow.
number 1 in the region. And I
Wow.
beat him, a
Wow.
legend, still a
Yeah.
legend.
Yeah.
And I funded 148 million that year.
Wow.
I remember it just like the way it made me feel, and all these
Mhm.
people. I think I closed like 430 deals that year.
Yeah.
You did a lot more units then because you had what were
Mhm.
called FHA streamlines and HARP loans, or making
Okay.
home affordable, where
Mhm.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac let you actually redo a mortgage because the market had gone
Mhm.
down with
Mhm.
no appraisal and almost like no documentation
Mhm.
type. So you could do like 30, 40 deals a month.
Wow.
It was a lot easier.
It's faster.
It's
Each deal
faster,
was just straight
but
through, yeah.
Going back to your question,
Mhm.
what motivates me is I would go to these awards event at
Mhm.
that point on a national level and be in the top. I was finished twice. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mhm.
So 2 years I finished number 3 at Bank of America
Mhm.
in the entire country.
Mhm.
And I remember all the great people I'd helped and realtors I'd worked with and families I got to,
Mhm.
speak with. People would come up to me at these events in Florida or Hawaii and they'd say, I thought you'd be older. And I was like 32 at that
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and I was like, yeah, what's me, because they see your name on a board.
Sure.
This is before you had like pictures on every email.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, just I like the way that made me feel.
Wow.
But then you look outside where you work and there's always next levels. Like some people that work at different companies and then they do 300 million and you're like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
That's the great thing about mortgage.
Yeah.
There's no ceiling.
Mhm.
And mortgage, like anything that you do well, whether you're an athlete, it's always you versus
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
What are you willing to cut out? How much prep work do you want to have the night before? So you're
Sure.
just off and running,
Mhm.
cutting out lunches,
Mhm.
because going to lunch is for wimps. Like Michael D. Douglas says in the movie Wall Street,
Right.
you go to lunch, you're just not busy enough.
Yeah,
It is what it
coffee's
is.
for closers.
You just got to work. And when I'd go to lunch, I'd always get to like,
Mm.
place I was going to, and then my phone ring and they'd be like, can you chat right now? And I'd have to like go back to work. So I try to bring my lunch and stuff. But yeah, so
Cool. You mentioned the legend. What was his name?
Kevin Buddy.
Kevin Buddy. So he gave you some pointers. Like, do you remember what those were? Like, was it about like your daily habits, or was he just like giving you some motivation?
He just was so good at speaking.
Yeah.
I remember him saying, you don't ask for the business, you earn it.
Yeah.
That was one thing he would say
Right.
a lot. And you really do earn it. You earn it
Mhm.
by being available. You
Sure.
work when no one else is working. It's like
Sure.
Michael Jordan's. One of my favorite quotes with Michael Jordan is he practiced when others wouldn't, not when
Sure.
others did.
Yeah.
So you have to work in those wee hours, you know?
Yeah.
And nowadays, you know, you don't go home at 5 or 6 o'clock and eat dinner like you used to in the early 90s or early 2000s. Now people are so connected that when they need you at 7, 8, 9 o'clock, they need you at that hour.
Sure.
It's just, it is what it is. You may say, well, my time is valuable or work balance, and that's great. But there's a lot of things that say work-life balance is almost a myth. Almost doesn't exist because people just don't wait for you. You have like an hour window. It's kind of unfair, but it's
especially when you're trying to grow, right? Like if you're trying to grow your business, you know, where's the balance? Like it's time there's time for balance and there's time for growth.
You just have to be on it. It's like me. Like I'm kind of true to that with when I hire somebody. Like if I need to get a haircut or if I need to have something worked on at my house or something, and I'm like, hey, can you come Sunday? I'm so sorry. I know you're probably off, but they say I can't.
Sure.
I don't have time sometimes Monday through Friday. I don't have a normal schedule.
Yeah.
My schedule is up at 3:45 in the morning and I get home at 8:30 at night. And I basically will usually check emails until 9:30. Then I'll watch real estate every night because I just have a passion for the industry. That's kind of a fun fact about me is like, I always say, like I said earlier, I'm always working even when I'm not working because I pick up a little bit more of like how deals work, how people kind of adjust with bad news with clients.
Sure.
Just the architecture of seeing a house in New York versus Miami versus LA. Like I like that stuff, but I think it comes through with.
Which shows are you talking about?
Oh God, don't get me started. I watch a lot of real estate shows. May sound cheesy because I love real estate so much, but I watched Selling the City. It's a new one on Netflix. It just aired. I watched it in like a weekend. It was over the holidays. I've seen a lot of the $1 Million Listings.
Sure.
I flew to New York. And
that's the one Josh Altman, $1 Million Listings.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Just these guys are just amazing. Their numbers are staggering. It's not easy to be on camera, and those guys are so good. I just met with a realtor, does a lot of business. We were talking about he was in Netflix for one episode, and he did a really good job. But he's just like, you're not used to it, it's different, and you're so busy in the business then to jump on camera. It's kind of
like a whole nother project.
Different mentalities. I flew to New York in 2000. I want to say 18. I met with Steve Gold in his office when he was still at Town. Steve Gold he was on Selling the City, but he's closed over $3 billion in his career. Just superstar, legend, right? And I flew out there with my team at that point. We met with him for like an hour in his office. But so
that's cool, in New York.
In Manhattan, New York.
Cool.
Yeah. I probably about 4 years ago, here at OCAR, the Orange County Association of Realtors, Josh Altman was the keynote speaker. And I had the privilege of introducing him in front of a pretty big stage. I think there was 800 people or something, I was told. And it wasn't just like an introduction, like, hey guys, come up. It was more like a 5-minute reel on like who I was and who he was. So it was kind of for me, it was kind of a big deal.
Sure.
Because, I wasn't just behind my screen looking at Excel spreadsheets and calling clients and pre-approvals. It was cool to get out and see a megastar and be able to bring him on stage in front of a really big group.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's move on to some career highlights here. I mentioned this at the beginning. You funded over $2.25 billion in loans. So be honest, how does it feel to look at that number and think, yeah, I did that?
It's actually pretty cool because the thing about mortgage is it's hard to do it well over a long period of time. I have a lot of friends that have worked for 2 years or 3 years at maybe a loan depot or a call center mortgage company where rates were low and they fund 100 loans, 200 loans, and they had good years. They make $300,000-$400,000 that year, but a lot of them, they don't last in the business and they can't evolve. Those rate sheets go up. They don't have any like recession-proof business, purposes, if you will. It's kind of based on that company or what they can be provided. So it's great to know that I've weathered the storm through stated income loans, going away, full doc loans, working at a bank, now working at a mortgage bank, which I feel is a really good fit in this market to tackle it for success. So I like that I could retire tomorrow. I'm not going to because I got a long way to go. But I like that I could finish tomorrow and no one can take away all those deals I've closed.
Sure.
It's kind of funny. People will call me from 2005, 6, 7 and be like, hey, my name is so-and-so. Like you did my loan. I'd be like, yeah, I know who you are. I remember you.
Yeah.
And if I don't have their number saved.
Wow, from 2007. So
I remember
almost 20 years.
I remember them. I'll be like, didn't you have a kid that was going to school in Alabama? Yes. How do you know
another
that?
kid's like 30.
Yeah. And it's really cool because I just remember those early years, where every deal still matters. Every client to me is so important. But in those first couple of years, you remember like who gave you a chance,
Sure.
you know, and I remember like driving to people's houses.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it all. Like I had to remember my first sales manager. I was like the lowest person on his team. He had like 6 people. That was when I was struggling.
Yeah.
And he would basically hand me like 3 boxes, and they would be flyers with rubber bands in them because they poke rubber bands. And he'd be like, "You see all those houses up there? You're gonna go hang those on every door." And I'd be like in a suit, and I'd park. I'd walk with them, and I'd put like 200, and then I would go do it again. I'd go back to my car because that's just what I had to do to keep a job.
Sure.
I was chased by dogs. Felt like a mailman. No offense to mailman, but like I remember being chased by a couple dogs. Where I go up to the door and it was like cracked open. And I'd see like a pit bull, and I'd literally have to run. I remember one time I ran about 10 houses and I'd jump in the back of a truck because it almost got my leg. True story. I remember one time I walked into a house. I thought it was the front, but it was actually the backyard, and there was a lady. She was actually laying out,
screaming.
She didn't have a lot of clothes on, and I didn't know. And I was like, she chased me out. And she was very nice. I just startled her, but I didn't know because it was in Irvine, and it was kind of hard to tell where the front was.
Sure.
I was just doing my job, and I said, "I'm so sorry." She said, "No problem." She kind of laughed it off.
Yeah.
She's like, "I was bored anyways," but like, so I had to do all that stuff.
Then you financed her loan.
Didn't get her loan, no, but it was a good ending. But it's like they say, a lot of these, like you mentioned, the Josh Altmans and David and James from just huge producers. They always talk about how they had to walk until they had like no soles in their shoes. Sure. I did that.
Yeah.
I literally did that.
Yeah.
I'd have to, it'd be like 105-degree day, and they put me like way inland, and I just with a tie. I had to wear a tie. I still really like the
sweating it out
kind of classic look of mortgage. You know, it's changed a lot. You know, the dynamic of being more casual. Yeah. People working at homes. It's really a casual industry now, even real estate. Yeah. But I still kind of like the suit and tie look for me. Sure. But they definitely made me put a tie on. Yeah. And, so those are some memories from my early days.
So what's the thanks for sharing that. That was like, I love hearing these like kind of behind the scenes, like origin stories, like, you know, like I see it in like the day to day. I wanted to ask next, what's the craziest deal you ever closed? You know, the kind where you walked out and thought, you know, did that just happen?
Yes, that's a great question. One deal comes to mind. So it was the biggest deal I've ever done. So that's kind of helpful. The loan amount was about $8.3 million. Where I work now at Movement Mortgage, we have about 5,700 employees. I think it goes up and down, you know, but Movement Mortgage started in 2008. So it's not a new company. You know, we have 784 branches. It's a huge company, right? It's always growing. I think it's in the top 10 or 15 of mortgage banks out of thousands. So since 2008, I've done the 3 biggest deals at Movement Mortgage. 3 biggest deals in the company name. Wow. And I've only worked here for about 3 years. Okay. So this deal I'll tell you about. It was about $8.3 million. It was a cross collateralization loan with a foreign national buyer from China. Okay. And I did a cross over 4 properties she owned. So foreign nationals are tough to finance. It's very limited from a lending perspective to do them. And a cross is basically you use the blended equity in the 4 properties. So you take the valuation of 4 properties and the loan amount essentially is leveraged against those 4 properties. Sure. And so we had to cross all 4 in order to pay off all these loans. She had like a loan on each one, and it was the best fit or path forward for the client to pay them all off, you know, per my banking outlet I was working with. So again, over $8 million loan, foreign national. I still remember the rate. I want to say it was 4.25. This is a few years ago. Yeah. But it's a tricky deal, you know, and it was also.
That's what made it crazy is like the chances of it going through were like low.
It was such a big loan, and I was kind of new here. It was my first year here, my first year at Movement. I loved it. Yeah. But, you know, I came over, I made change makers my first year here, which is you have to fund $75 million. And I finished 9th in the company, which was really hard to do. There's a lot of good producers at this company. Like I'm always battling to try to stay up top. But like I said, those next levels go a long way. Sure. And it's like they say, you always want to surround yourself with people that are better than you because you're an average of the 5 people that you hang around with. And so that deal was, I think, just the most dynamic and it really helped the client. And it was, you know, they're just hard to do. Most people don't even know. If you could talk to 95% of loan officers, they wouldn't know anything about how to structure that loan. It's just a reality of it. Even people at my own company or industry, it's just a different type of loan. It's very niche-y. Yeah. And so that deal was huge because I remember I gave a presentation for Movement Mortgage in LA where they kind of had like, you know, producers talking, and I was kind of the new guy on the street. Sure. And I had, I think, just funded that loan, or it was just funding, and they were like, $8 million loan, I was getting like from the audience, like, how are you doing that? Where'd you get that deal? You know, because it was that's a pretty big loan to do.
Yeah.
That said, though, going back to what I said, where you kind of want to surround yourself with better people, like Movement has a lot of good producers, but where I really started getting good from a volume perspective and passion was, which I've shared before, was when I worked at Bank of America, kind of in the 2010 to 2012 era. There was a lot of new producers that were in their late 20s, early 30s that came on to the mortgage scene, let's say, in our market. And these guys were so talented, and they would come in and they were just so fearless, and they would work so hard, and they had connections, and their volume went up, and it kind of forced me to have to go to the next levels.
Yeah.
And we had about 6 or 8 people at Bank of America when I worked there that are all now major players in the industry. They're all still crushing it, for lack of better words. Some do more business than me, some do less, but we're all
around your age, you would say, or like older,
all around
younger?
my age. I would say 5 years older, 5 years younger.
Yeah.
And like, you had to show up every day, and we had like a plaque in the office, and it was straight just, you either had to come in and do it or you got your butt kicked. We had a plaque, and every month we'd have the number one person. They also had what was called the Green Report, where every day the Green Report would come out, or it's how many deals you got the day before, and it was month to day. So it's super.
So they're making it competitive.
You come in, like you had a day where like you were out of the office, or I'm taking a half day or whatever, and somebody would come in when rates dropped, they'd put in 5 or 7 loans. You'd be like, I got to step it up.
Yeah.
You got to go, because you got to go, or you're going to get run over.
Right.
And you just always had to be coming in with the mindset of like that. It's like that Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
Tunnel vision, task at hand has to be met. Got to hit my quotas today. Where's my next deal going to come from?
Sure.
Wasn't just like, it's Friday, or there's none of that.
Yeah.
And so it kind of forced me to have to always be on and find deals every single day.
Yeah. I think a lot of realtors, we're talking to a lot of realtors out here that are going to be watching the show. I think they're looking for that type of motivation too, right?
Yeah.
Like how to like just get after it,
Yeah, I think for me, like, because I do a lot of, I think for me, because I do a lot of presentations, I always try to be, talk about mortgages, talk about the industry, but a part of me also comes out with like a little bit of a coaching side.
Sure.
Because I'm an originator because I'm an originator, like, that's my trade. And so I always say that originators are the best coaches, because we're in it right now.
Yeah.
And, a lot of coaches or people that are managers now, their job isn't so much sales or going after deals every day. It's looking at like metrics of revenue or profit and loss. And so I'm in the trenches. So that comes out a lot of
it's almost like you're starting over every day, right? Or every week, every month. Like you're going for the next deal.
That's the thing about mortgages. Every month you start from zero. And we're kind of graded on what we fund for the year, what we fund for the month. So you're always like trying to push your deals hard. Obviously the client, the realtor, the referral partner are at the forefront. They're all that matters. We basically work for and with them. Yeah. But every month you start from zero. You're right. You start from no loans funded. You have to do it again. Yeah. You have to create every day. You don't come in and just like things come to you. It's competitive. And so you have to come in and fight to get the deal, find the client, win the deal on rate, win the deal on product, and you have to solution it. So there's a lot of different dynamics within every deal.
I want to shift gears and kind of zoom out and talk about the Lion Loans brand. You know, we've done a lot of work in the last 6 months since I started, to just setting up this brand, making all the assets, like kind of getting the word out there. The brand stands for something, right? It's like, this is our, like kind of our social media brand. You want it to be like a platform. Yeah. Right? Let's talk about the Lion Loans. How did that name come about? Was it your idea, or did someone give you that nickname? So
Lion Loans came about. I was in a networking group called Lay Tip, and these guys that worked in my building when I worked at Bank of America approached me and said, we have a networking group. It's about 10 people in it. Would you want to join? And so in that networking group, it's kind of like a BNI, like a Business Networking International. There's a lot of them. And there's only one lender, one realtor, one attorney. So there's no conflicts of interest. Yeah. And so, this networking group was awesome, by the way. I'm still friends with a lot of them. I still work with a lot of them.
It was here in OC, you said.
It was in Orange County. Yeah. It was cool for me because I worked at One Park Plaza in Irvine, and we met right at the Hotel Irvine. So I could just drive in, walk over, and then walk to work. But they called me the Lion of Loans. And so we were really close. We networked, we referred back and forth, but they made up the name. The Lion of Loans, called me the Messiah of Mortgage. But it was just kind of because we had this like, fraternity, it was almost like a business fraternity banter. Yeah. So Lion of Loans, which I thought was cool. Yeah. This is probably around the time when Wolf of Wall Street came out. So it kind of rolled off the tongue a little bit. Sure. Of course, that movie is good and bad,
Yeah.
you know, in a sense, but
Yeah.
Lion Alones, and then I was always a Lions fan.
Yeah.
So Barry Sanders.
Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Detroit
Yeah.
Lions. They lost yesterday.
Mhm.
But, you know, Barry Sanders was my favorite running back. I know a lot about him. He went to Oklahoma
Yeah.
State University. He was so good. Like, you think you had him like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he'd go for 100 yards.
Wow.
And that was my team growing up. So Lions, football.
Cool.
And then the mentality. Like, I like Rottweilers. It's
Yeah.
kind of a big, like, strong,
Yeah.
you know, just, you know,
It
kind of
has
like
grit.
It has grit. And
Just
lions
like the Lions. The Lions are like a
king
team
of the
with
jungle.
The grit.
It's like beautiful animals. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know, it's kind of a cool thing. And, you know, we started doing more marketing with one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
Really what I stand for is outworking people, loving the business, always there for a client. I don't care. I always say, I don't care if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, call me. I can pick up the phone. I always think it's weird when someone says, it's Sunday, or
Yeah.
I'm with the family. Like, have family time, that's fine. But
Mhm.
everyone can do a 15-minute call.
Sure.
And that client, when they
Yeah.
need you, I want to be there for them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. So let's you've made some key investments this year, like the yacht, the Sprinter. Like you're investing your success back into the business.
Yeah.
You know, like you're using your yacht as like a networking for these like networking events, so like a standout in the industry. So what gave you the idea to combine luxury and business in such a unique way?
You know, for me, I was a junior partner on a boat. There's a friend of mine that lives in my neighborhood. He worked on my team at Bank of America. He had a boat.
Yeah.
And so I was a junior partner where I had access to it. And, you know, it's just when you want to go on a boat, you want to go on a boat, you know, and I love, you know, people to have a good time. I kind of live for other people to have a good time. And so if they can have fun, if someone from out of town or a client or a realtor or my own family, I wanted my parents to have fun. They're getting a little bit older and I wanted them to be able to enjoy it.
Sure.
And I know they won't do it on their own.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a cool idea to have a boat.
Yeah.
You know, living in Newport, like a lot of people say, like life on the water, it's a whole nother world. There's a whole nother group of people down there with the yachting clubs, and it's just great business. It's just great business acumen to be able to go down, hop on a boat. And so it's also great for networking. Like I don't play a lot of golf. I don't travel really. I don't really like to travel. I like to be, because I like to work so much. I feel like it takes away from that. So this is kind of one of those things I do in my spare time.
Sure.
The Sprinter. So I had a Sprinter that I had access to when I worked at a previous company.
Yeah.
And the goal behind it was you never stop working.
Yeah.
You have a meeting in Anaheim, San Diego, Riverside, Los Angeles. You literally hop on, you're working the whole time, and you hop off of it. Because clients need you when they need you. You have like an hour window. Like I've had times where someone's called me on a weekend and I'm like going into a store and I say, hey, I'm so sorry. Give me like 45 minutes. And it's like a Sunday and I call them back in an hour and they say, you know what? I couldn't wait.
Wow.
So people just don't really wait. It's just kind of cliche, but it is what it is. And so the Sprinter is something of me just, you know, going for it. Having a lot of confidence and wanting to keep extending what I do from a business perspective. And I like nice things. You know, I've worked hard for about 20 years in this industry, thousands of hours. And again, it comes down to if I'm meeting with realtors or clients or in my sphere of influence or family, and I can show them a good time and something different, then I really like the way that makes me feel and the experience I can create.
Yeah.
You know?
Awesome. I mean, I experienced the Sprinter and the yacht.
Yeah.
So, I mean, awesome. Like we did a holiday party in Beverly, right? And that was just like really cool to hop in there and like be able to plug in and still work and be like really comfortable.
Yeah.
You know? And your friend drove us. He was really nice. He was cool.
Yeah.
A cool experience. Man.
There's just not a lot of people that have them, especially in the mortgage industry. So I'm kind of betting on me.
Yeah.
Kind of betting on me because it's not easy to have these things.
Sure.
And again, I don't travel. I'm not married with kids, so I don't have like certain expenses that families do. Like my wonderful cousin has 4 kids. Like there's a big expense with that someday. But for me right now, it's things that I feel like are business, you know, like attached to my business.
Sure.
And like I said, I'm betting on me, like, because it's not easy to have these costs, but I do travel a lot. I'm in LA about 2 days a week. I have a lot of relationships now in the Palm Springs area. So when I go out there, you can't lose 5 hours on a Tuesday. You just can't lose that time. It's just, and so I did some analytics on it as well, where the deals I could potentially lose by not being right on it per se, almost pay for itself. If I can get those deals, they almost pay for those.
Right, like literally being able to take calls and be on your laptop like for 2 hours on the way to LA is like the difference between winning and losing a deal.
Exactly.
Right.
Or you know, sometimes also if I'm doing a presentation, I don't always prepare the night before because I have deals that come in until 8 or 9 at night. So a lot of times I have to almost write that presentation on the way
Sure.
up that day up.
Sure.
And then also the information is the freshest because a lot of times you have market data that comes out. Maybe it's the jobs report or the CPI or something like the inauguration where the markets can move. So you want your talk to be very fresh from the morning up.
Sure.
And markets open early because a lot of stuff is New York time that we do.
Yeah.
So I'm up early. I always say I work New York and Hawaii hours and even European. So I always work it. So it's like I try to work 3 hours.
So you start at 5:30. It's like, you know, you're
I like
closer
getting in
to
the
New York
office
time.
by like 5:30.
Yeah.
It's not that I sit there and look at a screen. I have to prep my day. I have a good little mini team, which I'm very proud of. But it takes so long to do things. You know, I have to write out my list of what I want to do. I have to set up my call stuff. Deals are always coming in. I probably get 3 to 4 referrals a day, you know, that just come in from various channels.
Sure.
And the key to it is being right on it.
Yep.
My motto is consider it done and just making it happen.
Epic. So we want to, how do you stay grounded while working with these high net worth clients and navigating a competitive market?
It's always about the client. It's always about the client. I always say there's a chapter, I'll reference another, you know, star in the Bravo world again, is Josh Altman. He said, he talks about, you know, kicking every football the same.
Sure.
So whether I do a deal, you know, whether I do a deal that's in Hemet, Beverly Hills, Lake Tahoe, you know, because I work in different markets. That's the thing about being a lender.
You're licensed in 50 states.
Licensed 50 states, but also with a lender, we don't have to go drive and show these properties. Like a realtor, you can't really show properties 5 hours away. For us, we can do a loan 10 states away because it's just on our computer.
Yeah.
But for me, I think staying grounded is it's all about the client. You make it all about them. You listen to their needs. Like they say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you want to listen twice as much as you speak.
Sure.
I try to just be there for them as if I would want to be there. You know, so I try to be there for them as if I want someone to be there for me, for instance. And so I think that's one of the things that sets me apart is a lot of people kind of work on their time or they're very busy. I try to just do it right away. So with every client that comes across me, like across my desk, I want to treat them the same.
Yeah.
I've done deals that are 50,000. Some people won't take them. They won't do under loan limit. But those people have needs. They really appreciate it. And I also call them gateway loans. Remember a deal I did, it was a $72,000 loan. I remember it. It was in the town of Victorville, which is kind of like the desert area. It's not the most, you know, high level for dollar amount, but this client was amazing. And she was older. Like I said, I treat every client the same, whether it's a $10 million loan or a $100,000 loan, because people deserve that. And so she had gone to like 3 or 4 lenders, even walked in a couple banks, and they just wouldn't help her. It was just like, I don't know if it was the loan size, and she wasn't that organized with paperwork. She wasn't computer savvy. Probably thought right away, we have to mail stuff to you. And I really took her call. I had time that day. I took her call. I went through a lot of options. She had a lot of questions. Closed the deal. And I remember that client being extremely grateful, really needing the loan. I think she was paying off 5 or 6 credit cards. She needed some cash out to live. But what came of it was, she said, my son wants to buy a home. I thought, okay, maybe he grew up in the area around Victorville or that similar price point. Her house was probably worth about $150,000. She said, but he lives in a different area. I said, okay. He's a doctor in Newport Beach. I said, okay. And at that point, years ago, it's probably like 2012. That was the biggest loan I'd ever done. The loan amount was $3.2 million.
Wow.
Because of this gateway loan.
Yeah.
And so there's a story there. I can trace back from that loan and his referrals and refinancing him, probably about 60 million in closings.
Wow. From that one deal.
From that little deal where I could have said, you know what? I really specialize in bigger loans. I'll take anything. I'll take a HELOC because, you know, you got paid that day. You helped somebody that day. It's a good feeling. Loans create loans. Clients create clients. And so there's a message there, I guess, and is, you know, it's like we see with like realtors. Well, let's say I was sitting at an open house. Somebody wanted to rent a property. I drove around for 6 months. I leased them something. Then they bought. Then I met their dad. Then I met his CEO. And it's like, it just kind of spirals.
How would you ever know? You don't know.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. I mean, if I would never helped her or been there for her, I think I talked to her on like a Sunday night or something too, like today, Sunday. But, you know, just, you know, take deals because they lead to more deals. And there's a good story behind it.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
What a lesson. So now let's talk about the podcast in general. Let's set this vision for this format, this new thing we're gonna do. So why a podcast, James? You know, what made you want to add podcast hosts to your already full plate?
I think a podcast is great because I want to find out about other people. Really, the vision of the podcast is not so much about me; it's about people that'll come on. So I'm very lucky because I get to come across people that are on reality TV star shows, big realtors, people that work in our community.
Sure.
That's one of my favorite things about my business is that I can talk to a doctor, a landscaper, a high school coach, all in the same hour. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You get to find out about these people's lives, where they came from, where they want to go, what their kids do. It's really, in my opinion, mortgage is my favorite thing to do. It's an amazing business. So I get the ability to invite people on that are maybe up and coming with what they do, whether they're a chef. Like I always say that I love watching cooking shows. I can't cook anything. I've lived in a couple of houses in the last couple of years. I've never turned a stove on.
Never turned the stove on.
I don't know how to do it, but I love cooking shows because they have so much passion for what they do. And they bring food on. It's about the balance of the flavors. And, I had a thought, I'm going to do this and do that. And it's like, I just find it really interesting.
Sure.
There's so much passion. And the way to describe it, it's like me talking about mortgages. Hopefully I come across lighting up because I do get excited. I'm technically a mortgage nerd. I don't feel like I look like a nerd, but like, I just get really excited. Like, and it's great to be an encyclopedia of your craft, to be, kind of a walking encyclopedia of what you do, like a razor sharp, just dictionary of ideas and thoughts behind the mortgage business. But going back to your question with the podcast, I think it's a great way to highlight others, which again goes back to my motto, which is, kind of working in this job to help as many people as I can build up their careers and have a platform to do it.
Sure. So what kind of guests are you most excited to interview? Like, let's answer this in two ways. Like, who would be your star, like, just dream guest? Maybe this is aspirational, someone we'll have on someday. And then who in general would you like to have on? I thought it was interesting. You said you're willing to like have anyone on. Maybe someone like a chef that you did the mortgage of. That'd be interesting. But what do you think about
I think for me, I would obviously say I would like to have a lot of realtors on.
Sure.
Because it's my industry, it's my business. I love hearing their perspective on the market.
Yeah.
It's funny, if you talk to 5 realtors, real estate owners, you get little different twists of what they're seeing.
Yeah.
It's going to happen this year, what the forecast is, what their brokerage is predicting. So I'm really fascinated by that. Probably other lenders as well. May seem like a conflict, but I want to embrace what they do. There's enough business to go around.
Collaborate.
Yeah, it's a collaboration, and everyone does business differently. If you look at the top, let's say 3 people in California at Movement Mortgage, I was number 2 last year in the state, but they are so good at what they do, number 1 and 3, but they do completely different business than me.
Sure.
So I can interview them, talk about like, what are you doing? Like, I want to learn from them. I'm genuinely interested. Like, if
you said one's in LA, one's in San Diego.
One's in San Diego and one's in LA, and they are superstars. Like, and so, I would love to shadow a top producer. So it's kind of my version to shadow a top producer for a moment, ask some questions. Most people will talk about what they do genuinely, because statistically, no one's going to do it anyways. They're going to say, oh, I want to try that. But no, really, you're just going to stick in your normal day-to-day unless you really have a dramatic shift in how you approach your day. You're not going to change. It's just a reality. And that's what makes people successful, is that huge shift, changing their life, cutting out stuff, getting up earlier, kind of committing to it.
Yeah.
Other people I'd like to have on the show would probably be people that are noted. Let me go back to that actually. Other people that I like to have on the show are maybe athletes. I feel like there's so much similarity with professional sports or sports in general with business. I feel like there's a message there. Mindset, it's hard work. There's so many quotes and movies, and I have I'm very blessed that I get to sit around a few different top professionals that played in the professional world, baseball players, football players that I see in the gym sometimes.
Sure.
So I'd like to try to have them come on, because I feel like they just did it at the highest level. Like, I'm literally a fan because of what they did.
Yeah.
They do what's so hard to do for people.
Sure.
Other people might be people that are on TV. Like, I work with some people that have been on Bravo reality TV stars, and other shows. So I'm always passionate about finding out more about what they went through on those shows, how they got on them, kind of learning from them. I think we can all learn a lot from others out there. Also, I'm a huge fan of like the Rudy, like Rudy and Rocky, like the whole like come from behind, like people that really didn't have the best chance, where they kind of had like a 5% chance to make it with what they're doing, and they made it. Like, that inspires me.
Yeah.
Like the movie Rudy came out in 1993, I think, or Rocky came out in 1976. Like the whole, like, I think like, Rocky's slogan was his whole life was 1,000,000 to 1 chance.
Yeah.
You know, like I like that. Like I'd love to find out about someone's story where I could be like, it almost makes me like, you know, there's a pitcher named Jim Abbott, played for the Angels, and he had one arm. He was a pitcher.
One arm pitcher.
One arm pitcher in the major leagues. So it makes you think like, you know, I don't want to get up or I got to drive 19 miles to work. Just shut up. Do it.
Yeah.
Someone has one arm that can play in the pros and use the same arm to throw and catch from. People like that really inspire me. It makes me dig deeper and want to go bigger myself, want to push myself harder.
Yeah. We're talking about the real estate market is just wild right now, you know, especially in California. I mean, Southern California is just nationwide, people tune into what's happening here, you know, to gauge the market or what's happening, especially at the top end of like, you know, expensive real estate. So what's one thing people don't understand about real estate that they should?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I'll go back. I watch a lot of real estate shows right now. I'm kind of embarrassed to say I'm watching $1 Million Listing New York. I think it's 2012.
So
it's an old episode. So I mean, the business hasn't changed that much, but at the same time, it's changed a lot. It may sound kind of like I'm contradicting myself because one, the foundation's there. But if you look at what I've done, I can talk about myself a little bit. So I've only been on Instagram for roughly 2 years.
Sure.
I worked at a bank and it was kind of frowned on to do social media. But you want to get, I think in real estate, you want to get ahead of what's new. 5 years ago-ish, Instagram was new.
Yeah.
So I got kind of late to the party. We're kind of building momentum. I think it's really cool. You know, I know what I like when I look at it. But now you almost want to look at what's changing now. Maybe it's AI, maybe it's ChatGPT. It's using technology to scale your business.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that. Like for instance, for us, we do text blasting, bomb videos, slide dial. We try to, you know, cast a wider net. Like our goal is to touch maybe 1,000 people a day. And that's kind of where that training hat comes on for me when I'm presenting about mortgages is I can't help but go into the mindset of, you know, here's what I'm doing. I'm an originator, you know, this is something that we want to share with you. Because when I talk, it's all about, it's always about how can I help you first before I help myself. And I always feel like if I help the audience, the realtor, financial advisor, the CPA, the good things come back to me. It's like reciprocity, meaning what you put out and help others, it comes back to you.
Sure.
And so, you know, for me, I think you have to kind of grow into technology and evolve. That's one thing that I think a lot of people didn't do well from 2000, like let's say from 2000 to 2010, producers that were doing the big numbers that I looked up to and said, how do you do it? A lot of them are way down in volume now, or they're out of the business. They didn't evolve. So I think you have to kind of look at, like you almost have to follow like an R&D, like rip off and duplicate motto, which is okay. You know, look at what everyone else is doing. It's okay to do that. Go on Instagram, look at who the top 3 producers are in your office.
Especially when you're getting started, right?
Yeah, you know, I think you want to create like 10 funnels. People sometimes get stagnant with making 5 or 6 calls a day or doing open houses. Those are 2 funnels, let's say. Have 10.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's face-to-face meetings, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's open houses. Maybe you hold like, you know, open house events for like, you know, whatever it is. You want to look at having
diversify, you know, where the leads are coming from, where the deals are coming from.
Yeah, you know, I think you have to just have that. Then it kind of creates a compound effect, like Darren Hardy's book, where just deals come in from all over. If something's not working over here, it's working over there.
Right.
It's like the Elon Musk model. If you work 100 hours a week, you're going to do a lot more than someone that works 40 hours a week, just because you're setting up more opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's just true in life. Anything, whether you're dating or trying to get a deal, you know, you call one person, you have one opportunity. You call 20, your odds get up a little better.
Right.
Yeah. But I think real estate's changed. I mean, the dress has changed. You used to have to wear a suit and tie every day. I still dress sharp.
Yeah.
But now people will show up in t-shirts and tennis shoes and backwards hats and do a lot of business.
Sure.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
I think you have to be a chameleon to your audience. You always know who you're in front of. You want to be authentic. You also, if somebody's 20 versus 80 per se, you want to kind of know who you're in front of and just, you know, represent who, you know, they're going to likely want to work with per se. Like I'm still someone that if I'm going to hire a financial advisor or a CPA, I kind of want a real professional element for myself. It doesn't mean someone's not brilliant that dresses different, but that's just kind of how I grew up in the business and how I still think of it. But the business will keep changing, will keep evolving. It's funny, even from last year, you know, this year. Yeah. I mean, last year was okay. I did about, I think I closed 130 loans for about 93 million, you know, give or take.
And we're in January 2025 right now. So what's it today, the 17th?
So this month I've closed around 5 million, I think. January is always a little rough. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
okay with that. We have a long run.
Mm.
You always want to beat your last year, but you have to almost grow and evolve and adapt, even in like 1 year from the last year
Mhm.
into this year. It's
Mhm.
just funny because the rate market's like this. I don't really sell rates. I more have a recession-proof business where
Mhm.
and I have so much equity in what I do, and I'm so available and
Mhm.
knowledgeable. And I've also created kind of this A to Z lending model
Mhm.
where someone needs a construction loan or a reverse mortgage or a line of credit,
Mhm.
whatever it is, they come to me because it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I can do it. And I can usually know like within minutes whether I can do
Sure.
it. I don't have to research it. If
Yeah.
it's a bridge loan or this or that, I'm like, I need about 10 bullet points and I can say right there,
Mhm.
based on what you're telling me, I can do the deal.
Sure.
It's kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah.
Realtors like that. One, some lenders won't even call them back.
Yeah.
Right away, they'll have a gap. Or they'll say, I've heard of that. Or let me try.
Mhm.
I haven't done one before. It's a big difference there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the
Yeah.
like the big coaches like Tom Ferry, one of the biggest coaches in real estate, he's huge. What he keeps saying right now and others are 2025 for a realtor will be more important to have the right lending partner than ever before. Because the deals are so hard. And the worst thing you can have as a realtor is to get a buyer in, they go in escrow, or a seller, and a buyer comes in buying the listing, doesn't close. It's like the worst thing because it's a realtor's job to semi-vet a little bit, but also that house loses momentum. They have
Wasted time.
They delist
wasted
it.
effort.
They have to remarket it.
Yeah.
It's seen on the MLS. It was listed. What happened? Why did the buyer fall out? And also just as a motivator. As a lender, my job is not to close your loans. It's to be an accountability partner.
Sure.
It's to be the first one up, checking in with you, sharing what I'm doing. Because I have to be your eyes and ears on the street. I have to be in the trenches with you, where I have to bring products and I say, listen, I have a new loan. You got to hear about this. And a lot of times they say, I didn't know that was out there, you know, because they have the wrong lender or someone that doesn't know how to live in those niches. You have to live in the niches right now.
So a lot of times for people who don't know the mortgage industry, so a lot of times you have mortgage products in your head, you're matching them to a client. So when you see a new one come out, you know, oh, I'm going to call John. I'm going to call Jane. Like you know who to call to that maybe would need that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you have to always bring awareness, and you have to bring it all the time, because a lot of times realtors, even when I speak to a group, I'll say, I have a program I want to talk to you guys about. And a week later, they'll say, you know, did you do this? And I'll be like, I just went over it, because they're so busy. People have 1,000 thoughts going through their head a day. And so I try to bring awareness over and over again, and even give like live stories behind it. Storytelling is big in real estate because it creates an emotional connection, a bond, it's more memorable. And so a lot of, there's been whole chapters in like Forbes, different books based on storytelling, how it's so much different, because you remind me of a client. They came in, they weren't, you know, or whatever it is, versus just, it's like they say, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So it's like you can say something and they'll get it, but you say, you guys are special. Like, we're going to get you this house. You really, if you're there for them, whatever it is, you know, goes a long way. So I try to create that for the client experience. But yeah, loan products are key this year. Like we have to go outside the box, even outside the box, because, you know, it's just harder. Deals are choppier. A lot of deals barely work. And also affordability is tough. You know, when rates are 7%, give or take, versus 2.5% to 3%, people, you know, values have gone up, rates are up. So affordability issues are there. So we have to really educate based on why people buy homes versus just seeing a payment and appreciation. Mortgage write-offs, stability, paying into a mortgage, maybe house hacking and renting other rooms in a house to offset your mortgage, subsidize the payment per se. So we always have to be giving those value adds, I think. And so let's go a long way. A lot of lenders don't do it. Like I have like performance that I do with cost cutting exercises, or people, not even their trade line related items like their car or credit cards, but there are other things that they make payments on, like their gym, or things that they just have small payments on. Look at how we can save them over here to free them up to be able to buy more house. So there's some cool science behind it. It's really philosophy of mortgage is really powerful.
Wow, that is powerful. So I think a lot of realtors, they rely on the mortgage brokers that they're working with. That, you know, you guys have your eyes and ears out on the financial side of things, right? The financial markets. So they I don't know if they do this. They usually come to you for these bold predictions. So we're going to ask you, what's your bold prediction for the future of luxury real estate in places like Newport Beach?
So Newport Beach has been really popular. You know, it's I I do a lot in Newport because I live here. My office is here, but I think Newport has really gone up a lot in value because a lot of people from LA, not just recently with these horrific wildfires, it's a terrible situation, but when they come down to Newport and just even the greater Orange County area, they find that it's beautiful here. You know, that I think Newport Beach was the most appreciated city in the United States, like I want to say quarter 3 or 4 last year. It was like 11% last year. That data could be off a little bit because you know you get different bits of data.
Sure.
Newport Beach is a pretty dynamic city. You have Newport Coast, Corona del Mar, Newport Heights, the Peninsula. You have all these different pockets of Newport, so it's a pretty amazing place. I'm so lucky to work here. Weather's great, and it's really become my home. I remember when I was in high school, I grew up in Laguna Beach. I went to high school. Yeah. One town over, basically. Yeah. I didn't like Newport because we played them in sports. They had pretty good sports teams. It was always like when you're 17, 18, you don't really, it's almost like a competitor. But I moved here in 2010 or 11, and I was drawn to it. You know, it's just, there's such a good social element. You know, you have doctors and athletes and just great people. The restaurants are great. You have great beaches. You're close to the freeways. So for me, I love living here.
It seems to be like an epicenter for real estate, right? I mean, you have all the shows here. They have a presence. They have their offices here.
There's a lot of shows. You're right. So, you know, a lot of the LA teams, these mega stars, the Jason Oppenheims, Josh Altmans, Tracy Tutors, you know, they've kind of come down to Newport because they find it's 60 miles away. They can sell luxury real estate because they're so good at what they do and people know who they are. We also have a lot of really good local agents that are just phenomenal producers. And you know, seeing their numbers are staggering. Like I look at them and they're like mega stars. As a realtor today, you're almost a star. You see them on like shopping carts and Instagram, and like that's who I'm drawn to. Yeah, because it's my profession. I have to be interested. I have to know who they are. Sure, it's like doing my homework. Yeah, I always think it's a little bit funny when I talk to a loan officer and I'm talking about a listing or a property that's sold and they don't know who they are. I'm almost like, you've got to know this stuff. You've got to know it. You've got to do your homework. Have a little bit more passion for what you do. It'd be like if a doctor was a doctor and like there's a new treatment or something, and he's like, I don't know what it is. Like I expect someone to know about it. Like I expect them to like want to like read into it and look at dream homes.
Keep your finger on the pulse.
Know what's going on around you. And you know, genuinely like it. You know, it's not work. It's not like, oh, I don't care about that stuff. That's the thing about being a good lender is even when you leave work, you don't really leave work. You just leave work to like, you know, kind of continue to see what's going on in your industry. You're always like paying attention to stuff and trying to be intuitive around what's coming out.
Blends in with your personal life, right? You want to go and become part of that social network.
It's a lifestyle, you know? I mean, I'm not out like at a dinner like, hey, I do loans. I'm not bothering people, but it comes out and being proud of what you do and having a passion for it. And like I want to find out what someone else's profession. If they're an educator, if they work at Marriott, they sell timeshares, if they're an attorney, like I want to know their story. You know, when did you graduate law school? That's what school did you go to? It's always good to know about people. It's like the Dale Carnegie model. Like the best, it's like the book, you know, Win Friends and Influence People. You know, it's about being interested in them, not interesting. Yeah. So like you catch more clients and friends by caring about what they do than talking about yourself. And so it's always good to be able to kind of interview people and help their business prosper and grow. And then good things come back to you.
Yes, they do. And well, how about this? For young professionals looking to break into the real estate game or the mortgage industry, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were first starting out?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, my first 2 years, I didn't think I could do it. Like, I just couldn't get above like the bottom 10%. And so what helped me was I had a good mentor. I joined his team. He was a sales manager, and he just gave me a lot more confidence. He was kind of like, I think you can be okay at this. Just keep doing what you're doing. He showed me how his team worked, because when you learn from someone else, you learn quicker. Whereas I was kind of on my own and just sinking quickly. He just gave me a lot of confidence, and he was very positive towards me. And I got to use his assistants because I worked on his team. And I just kind of learned the dynamic of where I wanted to go. Sure. You know, I think starting out, I think starting out now in the business, I would say give yourself a couple of years. You're not gonna have some people come in and they're like their first month, they're like, I want to do what you do, or I want to have these huge numbers, and like that's great. But you also don't want to set yourself up for failure. They'll come over and they have these big expectations. You're gonna have months where you make $0. It's just the reality of it. Right now, this market's tough. Last year, 2024, a year before 2023, a lot of my good colleagues and friends that made 500,000 a year, they were closing 100 million. They closed 10 million.
Wow.
It's very humbling because rates went up. There wasn't as many sales, lower inventory. It's harder to get mortgages. It's just such a competitive industry. So I think if I was younger, I'd say join a team, maybe learn from someone that does it better, kind of work into almost being an assistant. Because when you have more at bats and you're in more live deals, you learn quicker. It probably took me 10 deals before I really knew what I was doing. You're just kind of hoping the client stays with you, and I was always almost intimidated to ask the questions. If there's a problem on a loan, I'd be like, I want to ask him about that. He has to pay off debt to qualify. Like, can someone else do it? And so,
that's very cool. Love hearing about that. Three bonus round questions. So if you had one word to describe your career, and if you had to describe your career in one word, what would it be?
Great question. Have to do it in 2 words. I would say beast mode. It may sound kind of crazy, but one of my old assistants, she'd always be like beast mode. And I just think it's cool. It's like, you just have to go all in. Like a lot of our coaches here are like all in or just do it. Like one of them, today wrote just do it. It's so true. Like Nike, when they did just do it, I think it was like 1990, the revenue went from like 500 million to like 8 billion or something. It's like people in mortgage talk about, I'm going to do it next year. We're in the market we're in right now. Like this is all we have. We can look out, but a lot of the analysts are wrong. Like in 2022, Lawrence Yoon, who's the chief economist at NAR, the National Association of Realtors, Brian Buffini, all these big wigs said in 2022, rates were they're like 3%. They said they're going to go to 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. Rates went to 6.5. They were all wrong. So, what if rates went to 8% this year, 9%? You have to just do it. Whether you're a realtor or loan officer, you have to go for it. You create your success. So that beast mode mentality, it's kind of like the Mamba mentality of like Kobe Bryant.
Sure.
Like if like the Mamba mentality, he would say when he got on the basketball court, he had blinders on. He had tunnel vision where somebody could throw a tomato at him. Kobe, you suck. And he was so focused that it was like, get out of my way. Give me the ball. That's how you have to do mortgage. There's too much chatter, I feel. This is just some coaching. I'll put that hat on. Is like people come in and check their email and make their coffee and go to lunch. And realtors do it too. I love you. Sure. But like, you've got to come in and just grind. How much are you doing every day? And there's exercises around that you can do. One exercise, which I do myself, is you want to know how much you sell. The average person makes about 4 to 5 calls a day in sales. 4 to 5, which is not a lot. And they sell less than an hour. So here's what you do. Come in tomorrow, and when you hit your desk as a realtor, a lender, whatever you do really, and you write 8 to 8:15, made coffee, turned on my computer, 8:30 to 9, did this, 9 to 10, and you come back the day after, you circle your sales activities and you look at how much you can add up. I sold 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, add it up. You should be selling 6 hours a day to be successful. You have to originate, always prospecting. The best originators are always prospecting. You have 3 escrows going, you're traveling for work, you prospect around it. You have to prospect. And so that beast mode mentality is kind of like, just do it. Like it's always going to be hard. It's not so easy that a caveman can do it. This isn't like the commercial, you have to just go for it, rise above it. It's challenging. Like it's one of those things that makes me kind of excited, anxious, because you never know where your next deal is going to come from. And so, but you can't control the market. You can't control rates. You can't control inventory. You can always control how hard you work, the passion you have for every day, how you dress every day, how your mindset is. You can control that. So it's called control the uncontrollables. So it's one of those things you come in, you really grind, and that's the beast mode mentality. Good day, bad day, not feeling well, raining.
I think this leads right into the next question. It's kind of very much related. Like, how do you start your mornings? Right? Do you do coffee, yoga, staring at the ocean until inspiration strikes? What is it?
Good question. So the number 1 producer every year in the United States, his name is Sean Benassian. He works at Guaranteed Rate. He's a big, like, your morning routine is everything. And I completely agree with him. Morning routine, it sets the stage. So for me, my morning routine is pretty extreme. And this was an evolution. This wasn't something that I started doing, right away. Tom Ferry, one of the biggest real estate coaches, he calls it an accumulation over time. Like I was getting up at 7, then 6:30, then 6. You have to kind of build to it.
Mm.
So for my morning routine, I try to get up right around 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
I just get up at 4 a.m. It's just my time to work, and I'm committed to it. It's not that bad. When I would drive to LA a lot, which I do, something I'd always notice was I would see buses on the freeway, and they're kind of dark, and then they kind of light up, and I'd see these people with like suits and ties and helmets and bikes that they're holding. People that they have to bike to work to take a bus to work in LA.
Yeah.
I'm driving in a car. I can get up early. It's okay. It's okay to get up early. Like, yeah, sleep's important. I think it's very important, but people notice when you're first at your desk and when you leave last. It's kind of like they see the time on the email. A lot of people will comment to it.
Yeah.
Wow, you're in early. It almost just has this little like of who I am,
Sure.
you know? So back to your question directly is you have to be really consistent with your morning routine. So I get up right around 4. I try to pack the night before. A lot of people, they take like an hour to get ready in the morning. You gotta, you want to get ready. I know people take longer than others, but you want to have like your gym stuff ready, your food ready, your computer bag packed. Because getting out of the house
it starts the night before, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. Ryan Serhant talks about you plan your whole next day the night before.
Yeah.
You plan it when you come in. Obviously, time blocking is a part of that and calendaring. But a lot of stuff comes in where you want to prioritize it because you're not time blocked every minute of the day. You are some of it. But for me, you plan the night before. I get up at 4. I usually make 2 coffees in my Yeti. I pour them in.
Sure.
I'm out the door, usually around 4:30.
Double coffee.
Double coffee. I don't always finish it,
Yeah.
but I just do 2. One's not enough, you know. I usually drink like, it seems like a quarter of it before I even get to the office. My main office is about 2.5 miles from my house, so I'm kind of lucky because it's like a 5-minute drive. But you know, some days are casual days for me. Some days, if I'm seeing nobody and I want to get in really early, I'll dress more like gym attire.
Sure.
But a lot of times I still put a suit on. But plan your day the night before, plan your food. You don't have to go to lunch every day. It's an hour. If you look at that, if you look at 5 hours a week, that's like 60% of a day. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the big stars talk about the 4-minute lunch. It's a shake. And I don't love to eat a huge lunch anyways, because it kind of weights me down, you know, per se. So with my morning routine, I think I'm out within 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes sooner. I really try to get in the office. I love getting in early and working when it's dark. When the sun comes up, I'm like, damn, I didn't get up early enough because I want to be like in really early.
Yeah.
And I want to put out all my feelers before anyone hits their desk. That way, when they come in the office, everything they see is my emails first.
Sure.
Because it's like their priority.
Yeah.
I can escalate. I can set my team structure. I can set up my calls. I can also, like, rates come out around 7:30 in the morning. Interest rates, kind of like the market changes. So a lot of times if I have deals I'm selling, I'll kind of pre-price their deals. I'll look at what the market did. And that way, when rates change around 7:30, 8, 9, I can start selling those deals. So the market's also shifty. Sometimes you want to get quotes out early in case there's a midday, retrenchment or pricing change, not having to re-quote or, hey, the market moved. And then I read what I would call like my mortgage homework. Like I read a lot into like the mortgage market guide. One of my first managers taught me that the mortgage market changes where like I try to be the expert with what changes mortgage rates.
Yeah.
So I look at the 10-year treasury, the bond market, the Japanese candlestick theorem, just all these things that people don't focus on because they don't give themselves the time. I read into like 5 different subscriptions I have that I feel like are really good portraying the market. And then I try to touch my realtors, mainly and clients with, here's what happened in the mortgage. And I try to touch my clients and realtors on, here's what happened in mortgage yesterday. You should know this. Because if someone else in mortgage is telling you what they should know, that person's standing out to them, not me.
Yeah.
But morning routines are huge. Get up in the morning. I mean, I feel like if you're not at your desk by 7:30, you're behind the curve.
Behind the curve.
Yeah. Don't be average. Mediocrity is for nobody. Don't get to work at 8 or 9 in the morning. Get up early. Get to work. Your clients will recognize it. You'll get more done. There's actually some sayings too where they say work an extra hour in the morning, an extra hour at night, because you don't really feel it. That's 2 more hours a day. That's 10 more hours a week. So by working 2 more hours a day, which is kind of effortless, you gain over a full extra day of work.
Wow.
Which is so much because it's like the Elon Musk model again, where the more time you put out there, the more feelers you put out, the more comes back in. You have to create opportunity. You really have to create a lot right now. It takes 5 leads to maybe close 2 deals.
Yeah.
In that range, But morning routines are huge.
Tell them about your list. You know, since I started working with you, I noticed like you really you have your list every day.
Yeah.
And you hammer that. So maybe realtors out there can use that.
So for me, I do a lot of new way stuff. We use technology a lot. But for me, I've always had this sense in my head of being able to cross something off.
Yeah.
And a lot of people still do. You still hear these huge mortgage executives who own companies where they still use a list.
Yeah.
So I probably have about 50 to-dos on my list every day. 50. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It's either calls, follow-up emails, pre-presentations.
They're usually names.
They're names of people or ideas a lot.
Ideas. Okay.
But basically it goes, you know, each week I start with it and I go to the next day. Hopefully I cross it off, or sometimes I have to follow up on that same list today from the day before. But I use a handwritten list. I use, you know, computer databasing as well, of course, and a CRM. But if something for me, when it's right in front of me, I just get to it better. Yeah. So I use my list and I try to get everything done that day before I go home. Maybe it's 5 people that want to refi, 2 pre-approvals, 3 realtors to call.
Sure.
A presentation idea I have that I have to give to you to do marketing on. So it can be a lot of things. And usually I make the list so hard that I can barely get to it. Don't make an easy list. Don't have 3 or 4 things that you can do by 9:30 in the morning and have your day done.
You don't want to feel overwhelmed.
No, I mean, I'll go back to that. So I actually want to feel overwhelmed. Okay. So I have to just go for it.
Sure.
People that make these short lists, like, you got to push yourself more. You know, so I try to do a list that I almost can't get to on purpose.
Sure.
That way I have to work the extra hours to get to. When I do, it's a real sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
A lot of the big realtors and big athletes say, if you go to bed at night and you don't fall into bed so tired, you fall asleep right away, you didn't work hard enough the day before.
That Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
Do you create a new list before you go to bed though? So say you completed it, in the rare chance that you complete an entire list, like do you make a new one so it's ready to go in the morning?
I do. So I think everything's fresher the night before.
Yeah.
And you can kind of cross up what you don't have to do and you make it. And that way, when you come in the morning, there's such a different feeling of having something on your plate. It'd be like walking up to your breakfast table and food's ready versus what you're going to make. It's not the best analogy.
Sure.
But it's kind of a metaphor for just walking in, being ready to go, where there's no time wasted. Yeah. And you kind of pick apart stuff. Because if I get in at 4 in the morning, 4:30, 5 in the morning, I can't call people unless they're on the East Coast, some are. But I can email them. Yeah. And I can create, you know, ideas that then you can send out or someone can send out later.
Sure.
That's the great thing about mortgage. You can always be doing something. Yeah. You know, you can always be emailing somebody because they're going to get it when they get it. You know, it's not a 9-to-5 job where like you have to be there in person and like you have a little like open sign. It's just you can always be working. Yeah. You can get an idea in the middle of the night, feel inspired, write stuff down, and just go for it. But I do make a list the night before because it's fresher. And then even from 7 o'clock, I usually leave the office. I go to the gym from 7 to 8, and then I go home and work for about an hour. Even if something comes in later, I can add it to the list. It's just a couple things. So it's great to be able to walk in and just go for it.
Cool. I got a couple more fun questions here to close us out. Okay. So what random skill, what's a random skill you have that nobody would expect? You know, it could be like juggling or baking sourdough bread or solving Rubik's Cubes. Like what's a random skill you have?
A skill. So skill-wise, I mean, it sounds kind of bad. I feel like I don't do much else, but like I've adapted to such a mortgage life that like I always say I want to have enough success in mortgage to have other people kind of help me with stuff that I don't have to do. Sure. So like I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do laundry. So I'm trying to think a skill that I have. I don't know if I have a lot of skills, to be honest with you. I always say I'm good at mortgage, but not a lot of else. Yeah. I like to go to the gym. I feel like I have a pretty good gym background of like how to work different muscle groups because I played competitive sports. Sure. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I played baseball. I was, Division I player for a short amount of time. I was first team all league my senior year in high school on varsity. I also played 3 years of varsity basketball. And so I think I learned, I had a lot of good coaches. And when I played in college, even though it was for a partial year, I had good coaches. These are like Division I athlete, coaches where I learned strength training. And so I think that's also part of like how I approach my day from a business perspective is that I had these coaches. Like when I played at the University of San Diego for a brief amount of time, we had strength training at 6 in the morning. Sure. You had to be there at 6 in the morning. When you're 20 years old. Actually, I was 18, 19. You don't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning, you know, because there's other stuff you want to be doing. You're in a new city. So I think for me, really it's mortgage based, even though it's what I do, but also gym. Like I really like the gym. I feel like it's a great way to keep your mental fortitude strong, and it's something you can always do. You can work out when you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, even if it's something light. And so I do want to, you know, do more hobbies. That's why I got the boat.
Sure.
Because it's almost a skill to learn how to drive it.
Well, you just learned how to drive it.
I'm getting better. I'm not going to say learn how to drive it. I'm going to say it's a work in progress.
You're a captain. You're a captain.
I'm a captain in training. I mean, it's basically, it's a little tough to park a boat.
Well, what are you going to call the boat?
The Line of Loans.
The Line of Loans.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just going to stick with it.
We can. We got to brand that.
Yeah.
We got to put it on there.
Yeah, I think we can. I got to find a little time to do it, or I can have you do it. We'll have one of you guys do it here. But I think, driving a boat's a skill, and it's something you can do. Like I could literally move to the East Coast. I'm not going anywhere, but Florida, and you can have a boat. It's something that you can do anywhere. It's just, it's cool to be able to celebrate that with people on the water. It's a different feeling. It's kind of like my mind feels a little bit more tranquil. Because I grind so hard, it's hard to like get off my day. It takes a little time. I also like golf. You know, I'm not a great golfer. I can go and play. One of my best friends in high school, his family was a member at the LA Country Club. So it's right on the border of Westwood and Beverly Hills. And we go up there when we were 16 years old. And when I tell people that I used to play the LA Country Club, they're like, "How did you get into the LA Country Club?" It's like one of the most prestigious clubs. It goes right behind like the Playboy Mansion where Hugh Hefner lived. It's right. So you have two courses. You have the North course, you have the South course, but it's in a legacy, like iconic course that is just, you walk on the grounds and it's just beautiful. Wow. So I grew up playing golf a little bit. I got away from it just because I don't have a lot of time. I'd rather work and sit on an open house or work and then actually go play. But I really like the way golf makes you feel. It's just a classy sport. You can also do it forever. So that's one of my things I want to do this year is play a little bit more golf.
We got to get out there for some more golf. So last question. If you had a theme song, another fun one. If you had a theme song, what would it be and why?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's hard because there's so many songs. You think about movies, you think about things that inspire you.
The Bulls theme song is in the back of my head.
I mean, I kind of like the Rocky one. I mean, you know, I know it's
Rocky theme song.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little. I know that's kind of like.
It's a little cliche.
A little cliche with like, what's the song again? Yeah. What is it though? I gotta be able to announce it. What is it?
I think it's Rocky theme song.
No,
no, it's called Rocky theme song. I thought.
No, it's not. Well, what?
I
drop the link. We'll point up and we'll be like,
Evan, bring up that link. Google that link for us. I thought it was Rocky theme song.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I like the Rocky theme song just because it's motivating for me. It's the Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger. So I know it's a tiger. I'm a lion, but like it's still one of those things that just like it's just go for it. You know, you only live once. Make it happen today. I know a lot of people in mortgage that I worked with 20 years ago, and they did this much volume 20 years ago, and they do exactly that same amount of volume today. They never changed their habits. They never went for it. They never went all in. I like things that motivate me. You know, I like. I'd have to think about it more. But songs and movies that are kind of catchy.
I think that's a good answer.
But
it's a classic.
Yeah, that movie kind of defines me a little bit. When I first got mortgage, I had a poster when I first got my own office. It took a few years.
You named your dog Rambo.
I had Rambo.
Sylvester Stallone is an influence.
He's a pretty cool character, you know, and you know, he has a story. I know he had to sell his dog for like $80 to pay rent one time. He came from where he was like a struggling actor per se, but even before then, you know, if you look up him, so I think I have sort of a metaphor of my life of being up and down at certain times, finding a passion for mortgage after about 2 years. And it's still tough. I have to show up every day, outwork others. People that show up and work lighter days, I don't know how they do it. Because I have to be so on it. But I'm okay with that. But I'm ready for another year. I'm ready to get after it again. It's January 17th, and I'm ready to hit it hard.
Let's go. Well, James, I'm going to go into the outro. So, James, you've given us a lot to think about. Your journey, your brand, and your vision for this podcast. It's nothing short of inspiring. Thank you for kicking this journey off with us and for being so generous with your stories and your insights. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you thought and who do you love to hear from our future episodes. James is going to be interviewing them. To all the realtors and real estate pros out there, if you want to share your story or you want to create some amazing content in our professional studio, get in touch with us. It's free, it's fun. It's right here in Newport Beach. We're like 2 minutes from Corona Del Mar. Follow us on Instagram at James McKibben and on YouTube at James McKibben for behind the scenes clips and exclusive content. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. We'll see you next time.
Good stuff. Thanks for the time.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
That was great.
James McKibben on the mic, steady cross the globe. Lion of loans, got them stories untold. 50 states deep, he confides with pride. He'll line step, make that mortgage coincide. Roll with James, all deals intact. Loans hitting harder, that's a fact. From coast to coast, his name revered. In the finance jungle, there's nothing he